Hi everybody, it's Kathy here from Kathy Loves to Scrap, and I'm back again, and today is the first Saturday of the month of September, so we're stamping it like it's hot with my life on paper. And today's prompt is to reverse stamp, so that's quite tricky, and I'm going to show you how I've done it for my layout. I'm using some photos from my trip to Alaska, and this is from Creek Street in Ketchikan, and I had an absolute ball on my holiday. Full on, very busy. I'm using the trees in the background here as my inspiration and the buildings. Creek Street was very fascinating, and it is a historical place, so I incorporated some of that into my stamping, and I really did love being in Ketchikan. So today I've got my white cardstock that I'm going to stamp on. I've collected together some different colours which I may or may not use, as you see as we progress through the layout. And I'm using this paper here from Wild Asparagus. It's an old paper, and I'm going to just use the part of the floral panel there. I've also got this Cosmo cricket paper, which is Snorkel, and I'm going to use that part of that as well. And a very, very old, simple, basic grade background, which I'm going to use for the base of my page. So let's get back into it. I'm a bit rusty, haven't done it for a while. I'm just going to trim down the pieces that I need so I can put together on this layout. I'm using a 4.5 inch to the side here. Originally I started cutting these squares 2.25 by 2.25, but I actually then trimmed them back down to 2 by 2. So when you go to do that part, just do 2 by 2 so it fits in nicely and you're not double having to cut. So I have trimmed them back down to 2 by 2, as I said, and I'm using those to create a diamondy effect in the background of this layout to break up all that expanse, but also to add some interest. Now, they're not the main part of this layout. The stamping is the main part. So as you can see, originally I put the photos that way, then I moved them around to that way, and I think it's better this way, basically based on what I want to do with the stamps that I am going to create. Now, it is reverse stamping this month, which is, like I said, a bit tricky. Found that quite difficult to work out with my stamps because I don't have symmetrical stamps and I don't have reverse stamping stamps. So I had to find stamps that I could use that were symmetrical, and luckily for me I have these pines, which are from a Christmas stamping thing but fit perfectly for my Alaskan background here. And then what you do is you stamp one layer, and I've used the black because I want it to stand out, and then you turn it over and you use the reverse side to stamp in the colour over the top. Now, I'm using a range of colours here. I have gone with distress inks, and I've used some forest moss and some spruced pine and some bundle sage to build the colours of my forest or my tree line. And you'll see when I do my layout how I layer them up to look like the trees behind Ketchikan on the hillside. So you need to clean between each colour so that it keeps clean. You can do second generation stamping or first, but because of the colours of my trees, it really didn't matter that I used dark and light because that was the image I was going for. I also want to create the creek. So Creek Street is actually a street in Ketchikan. It's a famous street. It is a boardwalk around the creek or the waterway where the salmon come up to spawn, and you can fish the salmon there. They go through Creek Street up to the fish ladder and try to go up the ladder so that they can spawn, and most of them end up dying there. That's a natural part of the process. They do that every year. The creek gets filled with salmon, and at times bears come in and you can see bears. But when we were there that day, it was an extremely warm day. It was very bright and sunny, which we kept getting told everywhere we were going that was unheard of for that time of the year. It was an anomaly, but we were lucky enough to enjoy the bright sun and get to see everything at its best, and to enjoy the full colours and the richness of the environment. Now, Creek Street I found fascinating because it is historical, and I really liked walking through and roaming through and seeing the buildings. So all I'm doing again is reverse stamping. These are not true reverse stamps, so I've had to make do as I said, but you can see by going and turning them over and using the smooth-sided stamp, I'm able to colour the stamp a bit naturally with the colours of that forest, or here in Australia we would call it bush, but over there it's a forest, and it blends nicely for the landscape. I'm also going to do this sun over water just to build a part of the title area that I want on this layout, and it too I'm going to be able to reverse because it too is somewhat symmetrical. So I'm doing this one in a double, so you can see I'm putting in the Uncharted Mariner for the blue because I want it to be a bit stand out behind the trees, and then I'm putting in a little bit of Kaisercraft Lagoon over the top just to mute it down and soften it, like the colours in the water on the creek, sorry, that you see in my photos. And I'm also going to add in the lemon, the squeezed lemonade, which is a nice bright yellow for the sun. And I go over that twice, adding it and spreading it over the water. And I just take a little bit off it and use it as a second generation in that one. Finally, I'm going to put in this street lamp stamp, which I have from another collection of stamps, and it is symmetrical as well. And I'm using that because along Creek Street you can see these lights and the lampshades. What I did here to help it, because it is quite all filled in, not actually cut out to be symmetrical, is I've wiped in between the design to help the colour there. Now they look a little bit messy at the moment, but when I fussy cut them out, you will see how the reverse stamping has worked to create the overall effect. So I'm just going to put down my photos. I did off-screen stamp this background. It isn't reverse stamped, but it was necessary for here because it reminded me of the houses in Ketchikan as they went up the hillside amongst the trees. And so that's how I'm putting that in behind that photo for Creek Street. I'm going to pop this stamp of the street lamp up so that it pops off the page near the bottom of this photo and builds that street scene in behind the photo and helps to build that background there. Now using the trees, as you can see, I fussy cut them out, and now you can see that they've been stamped and coloured using stamping, not through other ways. And I'm popping these trees off so that they stand up off the top of that layout. I'm putting the clusters in to build them like you would see in the natural forest where they've got the talls and the shorts. Along the bottom here I'm going to build two separate clusters like the creek, so it's like it's running along the creek in the page, and I'm putting in the fence line with the trees to support it. So all of those stamps that I used to create using the reverse process are now being layered up to help build the cluster and to add to the photo environment, or the photos as a whole, like they're mimicking what you can see in the photos. You can see how clear that day was. It was beautiful. The water was calm. It was coolish. It wasn't a hot. It was coolish. That's why we still, as Aussies, have long sleeves on. You would see some of the natives wearing short sleeves, but we could still feel a little bit of the chill. They kept telling us that it was unusual that there was still ice in the mountains at this time of the year because of summer. Normally there's not, but because they'd had such a cold winter, there were still layers of ice and snow on the mountains, which were adding to the beauty of the scenery. And I must say, I would be back in Alaska in a heartbeat. It was simply magnificent and breathtaking. You can see it on TV, you can see it in books, but to see it in real life is just phenomenal. I'm adding in this little title here. It says, "Go where your dreams take you." And I'm just building up the last of that cluster with the last of those trees. So as you can see, I stamped enough trees to build my clusters, stamped enough trees to fill in my little embellishments to the story. And I'm just adding in some little word phrases here. One says fantastic, another says amazing, and another one says explore, and that's exactly what we did. We explored through Creek Street. Some amazing little sights, lots of history, and lots of people. Despite my photos there, it looks like there's no one in the photos, but there was a huge amount of people in the photos. So I'm putting in the title, and I am going to just check my spelling there, and you can see I've swapped out the C with the K. And my title I'm using is Historic Ketchikan, because that's what Creek Street is. It is historic. I'm adding in a little bit here to add the detail and lift it just that little bit more. I'm using Wink Stella in the colours of green and the brown and the just clear. And that's just adding some definition to that stamp lining. Not taking away from the reverse stamping, just adding to it, giving it a little bit of pop to make it stand out and look more defined against the background. And I'm pretty pleased with how this has come out, actually. I added in the gemstones there, and I'm adding in my date stamp, which it says August 2024. And there you have my layout. And you can just, well, they're a bit blurry, but in a moment the camera refocuses and you can see the clusters there, and the gemstones, the stamping, the reverse stamping, the colouring there to build up that forest look, the spruce pines and the normal pines, the northern pines I think they are. Now off screen I do add some faux stitching to those dotted squares just to lift them off the page. As I was looking at it, I felt that was a little bit flat, and you can see that faux stitching here. So there's my layout using reverse stitching, reverse stamping. I would not say that it was my most successful attempt at stamping, but I do like the effect. I may invest in some reverse stamps as I move forward, but as long as you've got a symmetrical stamp, you can reverse stamp quite effectively onto your layout, or like I have done, onto cardstock and then fussy cut to build your embellishments. I'm Kathy from Kathy Loves to Scrap, and I'm coming to you from the land down under. Don't forget to give me a thumbs up. It lets YouTube know that you like what I'm doing. I'm so glad to be back. Hit that subscribe button. You'll always find out when I'm releasing new content. Leave me a comment, I'll get back to you. Let me know what you want to see, what you think is working. I really do appreciate everything that you do. You can find me on all my socials under Kathy Loves to Scrap, including Instagram, where all my layouts end up, even those without videos. Thanks for watching, and happy scrapping till next time.